Paladin has lost its open goals. Leave it. You ban their priest, and they can't deal with your Paladin. And it's a really interesting. We're going to see a lot of weird picks. We're going to see a lot of rogues banned. But now we're going to get into game number 1 of the second match of the first round.
I cannot wait to see how this is playing out, because it feels like you were saying that maybe Beguiet has got the best of the bans with his rogue being banned away and anticipating that, getting rid of the priest from his opponent. But we are going to be starting with a good old-fashioned even Paladin game to get things going. The scourge of ladder at the moment. And I would have to say at the moment, it's looking to me like Beguiet is not in a particularly favourable position for 2 main reasons. He's going second, which you don't really want to do in this matchup. You'd rather be on the play so that you can get that first hero power on, dictate the trades a little bit more effectively. And he's got Gen Grey main, which sucks.
It does. It's like drawing patches, but worse, because it sits there guaranteed to do nothing for at least 6 turns, and usually more like 12.
I was wondering that. People do say it's worse than drawing patches. Is it?
Yes.
Because so you could use like patches when drawn was a better card than Gen, but when you didn't draw patches, it was so much better than when you didn't draw Gen. Like,
actually,
you know what I mean? Like,
fair,
you know, if you played a pirate and patches was drawn out, it was so much better than just not drawing Gen. I don't know.
And it's hard to compare numbers, because I think not drawing patches, you end up getting like a 35% win rate, and not drawing Gen,
exactly.
You get like 45. But
right.
Paladin starting from such a high standpoint, it's impossible to know if 45% is actually just awful.
Fair enough. But things are definitely turning around for Beguiet. He's got a very nice 1-2 punch on turns 3 and 4 with Call to Arms into Consecration or Consecration into Call to Arms, depending on how his opponent's board is looking, which is obviously exactly what you're looking to do, get that early board control and start pushing some damage with the likes of Commander and Avenging Wrath. But this turn, however, is not looking quite so juicy.
You do see a lot of these aggro versus aggro, let's call it for the sake of argument, matchups, especially Hunter versus Hunter in the old days. Whoever has the coin just loses.
Yes.
But with the strength of the 4-drops in even Pally, I don't think it's quite as terrible as it is in maybe other aggro versus aggro matchups, because you can just coin True Silver into coin Cool or whatever a lot of the time. I
agree. This is the saving grace. And like for Paladin for the longest time, it's been the reason is they have incredibly strong 4-drops. Even just in the basic set with Consecration, Blessing of Kings and True Silver, it's always been that going coin 4 into 4 was very good, especially, obviously, with the inclusion of Call to Arms thrown in there as well.
It used to be awkward in Arena back in the day for that reason. If you picked any, like even a Yeti, which you really wanted, you could end up with like just a curve of 4-drops and nothing else.
Yeah.
So yeah, all these powerful cards for Paladin are a long-standing thing. Okay, so choice between Consecration and the Call to Arms. We're just going to get the deck thinned out, get the Call to Arms, and try and hit some juggles.
Oh man, that was like staggeringly good for Beguiet there, given how it's gone. And there are a couple of reasons why I think he maybe should have considered more heavily going for the Consecration, because obviously the reason to not go for Consecration is you anticipate your opponent has Call to Arms and you want to hit that. That's very important to do. Orange kept no cards on the mulligan, however, so the chances of him having Call to Arms, obviously you would keep Call to Arms in this matchup. There's not that high chance of him having it, and Beguiet has already drawn a juggler, so the ability for him to snipe off these low health minions from his opponent is also very low. He got some fantastic order there. He's clearly been working out and getting that order in check for him for this series, but I don't know, I feel like that was maybe a bit too optimistic of a play there, whereas going Consecration into Call to Arms maybe would have just left him in a better spot, because Call to Arms, like Consecration, can suffer in this matchup in the later stages of the game. It depreciates in value quite quickly, I would argue.
However, your opponent does play a Call to Arms herself here. You just kill them with your Consecration, so...
Yes, okay, so that's the obvious
like
upside.
Like you say, you know he probably hasn't...
Yeah.
Well, there's a good chance he hasn't got it, but it's a really awkward one. But I think also, it's one of those rules of thumb things that isn't ever definitely always correct.
Yeah.
But if you're not sure whether you should play the Call to Arms or not...
play the Call to Arms.
If you play it, you're probably not very wrong, but if you make a mistake the other way, you could just have a blunder on your hands.
And like I say, you know, I'm not necessarily arguing that it was the wrong play. I just maybe would have liked to see more consideration, exactly, because there was a lot of benefit to going for the Consecration there, whereas on the following turns, it's looking to be pretty bad, actually, the Consecration. It might sit in hand for a while.
The
whereas Consecration is always good. How he has
chosen to play this is now he's got Orange pretty much on the back foot thanks to a super snipey juggler.
Yeah.
And any sort of card at all here, he's going to be in a great spot.
But what it does mean is that the call to arms was dealt with by minions on board.
Right.
Whereas Orange has no answers to a wide board. It doesn't have Consecration, Avenging Wrath, or Jugglers in hand. And so if Be Quiet had gone for that Consecration, I know I keep going back to it, then maybe his opponent wouldn't have been able to clear off that board that was gained from the call to arms. And this would have been more damage coming through to face for Be Quiet, because, I mean, if he had a full board coming into his turn 6 and he plays Tarim, that kind of feels like just game over on the spot.
The most simple deck to play in the world, ladies and gentlemen, and we're discussing every play pretty much with about 3 different options, or ifs and buts. Again, with that call to arms, it thins out your deck. You're moving into turn 6
very
and
true,
7
very
now.
true. Yeah.
You know, you don't want to pick up a plated beetle right now.
You are
It's not what you want.
Yeah.
So there's all these ups and downs that go with these plays, and a lot of them aren't calculable in the real world. You have to play many games of Hearthstone and see which ones work out the better for you in those sort of situations a lot of the time.
Oh man, Gen sucks so much. It's so bad, especially in this matchup. Like, if you're playing one big minion, Equality, Tarim, all these answers just mess you up so much. Even like True Silver or Blessing of Kings, like, it's just dealt with so easily. It doesn't do anything.
Your weakness becomes your strength, Derek. That's what he tells you. Your 6/5 becomes what? A 0/0.
Rubbish, yeah, dead. It becomes not alive anymore.
So, Be Quiet just fighting for the board, and something I've always found just amusing, and I think newer viewers, newer players always find it incredulous, is how people smashing each other with cheap, efficient minions always results in nobody taking any damage for the first 10 turns.
Oh, okay, that's just another questionable play from Be Quiet, because at the start of the turn he had a 1/1 on the board against again. Tarim feels pretty decent there, actually, if I'm honest, because obviously Tarim, you want to be optimistic. It's like the best card in your deck, so you want to win when you play it, or at least feel very far ahead. But the thing is, if you don't have strong comeback mechanisms, or if you don't have the mana and tempo to be able to pull it back in your favor, Tarim becomes bad because it buffs your opponent's small minions. And in that scenario, if you've been left with a 3/7 instead of a 4/2, obviously he doesn't have Tarim in hand anymore, but Tarim is just going to get worse and worse because his opponent is going to fill up the board.
Right, but the key to what you just said there is if you can't deal with your opponent's minions, he has a Consecration, he has an Avenging. So maybe he thought, maybe I can deal with those minions for a little while.
He doesn't have a quality, though.
Greedier. He doesn't have a quality.
Equality makes so much difference in that scenario.
There's another thing you want to do in this matchup that's very important, is if you get the chance, if it's a level game and you're trading back and forth, like this kind of is,
yep,
you want
absolutely.
to Tarim their Tarim.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we got one.
Oh, like again, I don't know. This is like
exactly, I don't know either.
I don't feel like that. I mean, obviously there is a correct answer that will lead you to winning the game more and more. But when we can't have perfect information, it's very interesting to discuss what would have led, in the majority of instances, to a better scenario there.
Even getting you to admit there might be a better scenario is hard work. I'm taking that as the W.
It's good. No, it's good to push it to the limit of the conversation.
out all the possibilities, because it's a matchup that I'm pretty sure that everybody who has touched an even Paladin has played hundreds of times.
Yes.
So pointing out all of these intricacies that make a small difference each is always interesting to see.
And it's looking to me that the cards I was thinking that might be stranded in Be Quiet's hand, like Consecration and to a lesser extent Tarim, might be starting to get some value here. Consecration is obviously going to be pretty good here in this scenario, but it's not actually that good here because he doesn't have the copy of Equality able to let rip. There's still so much damage on board here. Even if he goes for the weapon swing into the Beetle, then Consecration, there's 10 damage left on board.
I'm interested where Orange got the read. There's no Equality there. That's a very good read. This late in the game, there's a very strong chance there's an Equality, and if there's an Equality, there's definitely the removal to go with it most of the time.
What can he do to play around that, though?
Right, sure. Play less stuff, because he had a pretty big board as it was. Like, I guess he feels that if the Beetle just got killed with Equality, Consecration,
exactly, you want it to die.
He goes Avenger, he goes back to Valenier, and off you go again. So yeah, that worked out really nicely. He didn't even need the read.
And now Orange has the Sunkeeper Tarim. And let's analyze this from the point where you were saying, you want to Tarim your opponent's Tarim, which obviously you do. I completely agree with that assessment, because getting the reduction in health can be very important. But Be Quiet, is it actually even that good here? He's so far behind on board. If he goes, Armani Hero Power Tarim, it's not enough to pull back the board. He's still just weak to Argent Commander, Avenging Wrath, things like that.
Two cards that happen to be on Orange's hand.
Yeah, exactly.
But in fairness, if they weren't, if those cards were like Equality and Plated Beetle, although he's already used to, I think, this would actually really be a problem for Orange. to be fair.
That's
I mean, you
fair.
know those
That's a
cards are
good point.
probably in
That's
his
a good
hand
point.
right now, as well as True Silver's another good card Orange could have.
I think the thing to that is Call to Arms has been played by Orange this game, not both copies, but a lot of 2-drops have been played, basically. It's very unlikely that he has a bad hand. He probably has cards like Equality, Consecrate, Blessing of Kings, Avenging Wrath, cards like that, which do mess up the maths that your opponent has to make.
Still one equality away from, I mean, for all the slaps, like you're saying about health totals, for all the slaps they've given each other, Beguiet's one equality away from just levelling this straight back up, because nobody's taken anything approaching lethal damage. Obviously, it's approaching it next turn. He needs it urgently, but equality would make a massive difference to this right now.
Absolutely. And you were saying earlier that Orange has the read his opponent doesn't have equality. I feel like... to me, this is the turn where he makes the read whether his opponent has equality. Like you said, if he went all face there and he's met with equality Avenging Wrath, he probably just loses because he can't really get a strong board back, and he doesn't have enough damage for lethal on the following turn. So I do like the one trade there. I don't know, I wouldn't have even necessarily hated the double trade.
You're playing the Chain Gang a lot of the time here, right? But what other card? Avenging Wrath, this is where you need to have played a lot or mathed a lot. Avenging Wrath has a very good chance of clearing this all up.
Really?
Yeah, not a huge chance. It's very good.
There's 6 health on the board. Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
You are a lot better at Avenging Wrath maths than me. I have to be honest. It's an area that I struggle with. It doesn't seem to make sense to me.
I think he was favourite to probably leave something, but it didn't have to be the Armani. There's a really good chance, even as a 2-3, of killing that off. And if you do kill it off, suddenly you're back in it. And... now they're just going at it with missiles to the face.
Yep, just seeing what can happen here. As it so often turns out for both of these sides, it's just whoever has the last kind of high damage threat ends up ahead, be it True Silver, Blessing of Kings, Argent Commander, Avenging Wrath. You can put yourself in such a good position if you just have that one last threat. And for Orange, he's in the kind of bad situation where he was playing aggressive at the start, got his opponent low on health, and Avenging Wrath is not closing out the game.
Valenier got silenced.
Exactly, yes.
That could be huge here.
And, you know, this is the reason why Avenging Wrath was not played for the longest time in Hearthstone, because if you're using it as a board clear, it sucks. Like, it's not worth the mana cost that you're playing for it. It's when you're doing it for 6 mana, 8 damage to face, or clearing off the whole board with equality, that's when it's good.
More damage going into the face here, just setting up a huge board for next turn. There's 6 bursts from hand, plus just the 6-5 would be lethal.
But man, does that feel risky from Beguiet. Going for not clearing off the Spellbreaker.
Equality Avenging Wrath would absolute must do. If you count it for 8, it wouldn't be lethal, so he'd still be okay.
Yeah, but you know, how is he coming back from that then? If he'd have to kill off his opponent's Spellbreaker with the Argent Commander afterwards. I know he could go for Consecration.
He's got the tools, and this has been a great game. I actually find these games get really interesting.
Me too, yeah.
The early decisions matter now.
Right.
All of this is a product of what you've done earlier. What you're drawing now is whether you did certain things earlier in the game. If you've got Valenier left or not is a product of whether it got silenced. And sometimes it comes down to very close to fatigue. But yeah, now this has just gone the other way.
Yep, Orange at the point where he can win it unless a Blessing of Kings, a True Silver, is picked up right now to offer lethal for Beguiet on the following side. It's all down to this one draw. This incredibly long game. He gets the... Can Call to Arms do anything? Beetle can't die. Juggler cannot provide enough damage. He's drawn both jugglers anyway.
It's not good enough, and it's not an even card.
Yep, can't play Righteous Protector. Dirty Rat's gone.
Wow.
I don't see it.
I don't see it either.
Man, such a close game. So many interesting decisions to be made along the way there. And maybe for Beguiet, that one final turn, like, say, even if he'd gone Argent Commander attack face and left up the Spellbreaker, that would have been more damage. That might have given him more chance to finish off the game on this turn. He still probably would have lost to the second copy of Avenging Wrath for Orange.
And that's the other thing you said, it's the second copy. I mean...
Fair enough.
You do have to factor that in. It's been a very interesting game, and again, there's probably people going, interesting, lol, Resident Sleeper, Paladins, but it's been a very interesting game.
Sadly, the way that Hearthstone works, not getting the battle cry off Call to Arms, Beguiet throws it down, and Orange takes an incredibly close game with his even Paladin there, taking the victory on the play as well instead of on the coin, which, you know, it was much closer than I was expecting it to be there, considering how bad Beguiet's hand was at the start there. But it was very comparable hands. You know, they both found a Call to Arms in a timely fashion. They both drew Gen, and it was apparent. It came down to the wire, very, very close at the end there.
Yeah, those 4 drops with the coin again, sort of the great leveler in terms of coin playing. Beguiet just gathering his thoughts.
But also, sorry, one thing I just realized, was the Consecration in hand right until the end of the game? The card that he could have gone coin Consecration on turn 4, it was stuck in his hand right at the end, which, that's a good card in the matchup. Like, it would have been really good on turn 3, and he literally didn't play it for the entire game.
Yeah, that's kind of awkward sometimes, but Orange never really established a board full of 2 health minions.
He had on turn. He could have gone coin Consecration on turn 3. That's what I'm saying. Like that one turn where he went
the
coin
Consecration
calls
actually
one.
clear up a really big
It
board?
did. It cleared up a Knife Juggler, a Loot Hoarder, and a Hero Power, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, a Beetle. Yes, it's a Beetle, a Loot Hoarder, and a Hero Power.
Even Shaman, the deck you see more and more as time goes by, and I think next week we're going to see a lot of this deck.
Absolutely.
Nerfs have happened.
I would agree with you there. And the whisperings I'm hearing as to why this is being brought is that it is similar to Even Paladin, but it beats Even Paladin.
Right.
The point of bringing it, I believe, is, Hero Power on turn 1, you're only making a totem, obviously, but if you can hit any of the buff cards, like the Earthen Might, the elemental buff card.
I'll go with that.
We'll go with that. Yeah, that can be sometimes played. Very good. You can get the Stormforged Axe, even the Flame Tongue totem that we see there. Very powerful cards to just lock down that early game. But on the other side, Orange has got a pretty decent hand to be getting on with, going coin 2-drop, which is not a play you often see with this Even Paladin deck, but looking to be respectable here.
Yeah, I mean, the hero powers are pretty much equal, except that the Shaman ones get better and better as they start to work together. To start with, I think...
How so?
So when you start getting healing on your 0-2s that are being hit by the opposing 1-1...
Healing is nuts.
So on.
Healing is nuts. Yeah, I completely agree. If you're paying 1 mana to heal up a 2-3 or a 0-3, like a Merc Spark or this Primal Fin Totem, that is absurd. I completely agree with you.
Now, the reason this Shaman deck wasn't really played much to start with is because it just doesn't kill your opponent.
Right.
So against a control deck, you get this massive wide board of 0-2s and 1-1s, and you hit your opponent for 3, and they go,
so
okay,
what?
I'll heal myself for 2.
Yeah.
But the reason it beats Paladin is because when you get that big wide board, it doesn't matter that you're tickling them to death because they cannot kill you.
Man, this is the downside of going coin 2-drop. This is why you generally very rarely see it, because even though you're playing usually 9 or 10 2-drops in this deck, you need 3 of them to perfectly fill out your curve, which just doesn't really happen. Whereas if you go Hero Power 2-drop, coin 4 into 4, that's a lot more likely to give you a full mana curve out. And obviously the benefit for Orange to go for this play was that he kept up on board a lot more. But maybe he should have considered deliberately falling behind so that he can catch up with the Consecration that he already had in hand.
So I'll go the other way on you, as always, just because I do.
Please do.
As you are the underdog in this match, you've got to take some chances somewhere along the line. So rather than sort of keeping up with Consecrations a little bit and then your opponent just flooding you after those, it's like, okay, I'm going to draw 2-drop, otherwise my opponent's favoured like he was in the first place. But if I do draw that 2-drop, I can actually keep up into those Consecrations, have a board behind them, and that would be a really good thing. So I think he knowingly took that chance. Well, he obviously knowingly took that chance.
Yeah.
And the payoff is if I draw the 2-drop, I might well win this game.
Okay. Fair enough.
But yeah, I mean, your point's perfectly valid. Now this is the price he's paying.
Yeah. But, okay, I guess no matter which way you slice it, like if he had gone for the other line of play and not coined a 2-drop and gone coin 4 into 4, the Consecration still would not have been very good. There's too much play for Be Quiet around it. And, he did very well, buffing up the Flame Tongue Totem with the Earthen Might to solidify himself against a board clear. He's done a very good job of trying to keep himself alive against those strong board clears.
But this is the exact situation I was talking about a minute ago about why people didn't like this deck for the longest time.
Right.
Look at this lovely board I've got. If only I had my Bloodlust, it costs an number of mana.
And you can't play Taric, basically, is the big thing. Because that is what kind of makes Even Paladin... Well, actually, it's got a lot of burst in the late game. It kind of finishes off a little bit quicker than Even Shaman. But like you say...
And if you've got 2 Sea Giants and Alakia, if you count Corpse Taker, sure, good luck to you.
Right.
That's it. That's your aggression.
And, well, Hagatha for the late game.
Hagatha will win you the game against the Controller eventually, yeah.
And so this turn is very, very interesting indeed for Be Quiet because he drew the Ooze to destroy a weapon, which feels fantastic. But I think this is him realizing the way he gets blown out here, just completely losing on the spot, is Consecration. If he doesn't play against that effectively, his board is cleared, and then he probably just loses. He's just not going to have the ability to refill after that, or the burst damage to close out the game, because like you said, he's done 8 damage over 5 turns, even though he's been consistently ahead on board.
And incredibly, now it's been drawn, his old board, even with the extra 1-1 plus the Ooze, would only barely deal with a call to arms.
Right, yes.
Just it would have looked massive. It would have just about have tickled a call to arms to death. So putting these extra minions out there has helped him a lot there. And look, now he's got some sort of stuff going on.
And obviously Beguiet, if he was playing the numbers, would not expect a second copy of Consecration here, which is why he's going for acidic Swamp Ooze. But this play is very fishy. Murlocs.
Yeah.
Because you're setting a bunch of minions on 1 health, which means either Consecration, Knife Juggler, or Avenging Wrath going into turn 6 as well, which means the Ooze is very vulnerable to all of those lines of play.
Yeah, like you say, fishy indeed. There are no Murlocs. I guess there's the 2/3 dude.
That Murloc's coming. Primal Fin Totem, my friend.
All right. There he is. Are you happy now?
Tremendously.
Good. Well, still a little bit awkward for Orange to get this back in his favour, but it's just getting to the point where... Oh, it's not getting there, is it?
I don't know.
This constant barrage of completely pointless minions is getting really irritating for Orange to deal with.
I don't know. Beguiet is going to start turning up the heat here, I think, with Argent Commander into either a Defender of Argus or Alakir. That's really a huge amount of pressure that you can start pushing forward, which is exactly what Beguiet needs, because now that one of the copies of Flame Tongue has gone from his deck, this is like perfectly good enough just to start pushing some damage. He just needs all the damage he can get here.
Orange shuffles in his seat as he picks up the Juggler because he's got Call to Arms to go with it and a load of open goals on the other side.
Yeah. And that has to be the play over Call to Arms. Over Avenging Wrath, but you're heading into Hagatha turn, which means clearing their board whilst developing your own is potentially very risky indeed.
Do you think you beat Hagatha anyway here? You maybe you do.
Yeah, I think maybe you do.
Well,
you've
sometimes
got Tarim and Valinir in hand.
Yeah. So
it's not outside the realms of possibility.
Well, that's taking care of that totem. Here's another Juggler.
Yeah.
The first one's terrible, so his second one's going to do some... Oh, my goodness.
These jugglers suck.
They are really grim at juggling.
Oh my goodness, poor Orange there.
And even with those awful juggles, his situation was nearly okay, but nope.
That's going to be it. The 6 damage coming through for Beguiet. The even Shaman doing his job as he grins at the camera there. He knows he got a little bit fortunate there to close out the game. That was incredibly unlikely to happen. Did the juggles actually alleviate 0 damage off the board? Because it went...
there was 6 juggles and it was...
It was 2 to the Argent Commander, 2 to the Spell Power, and 2 to Face. So literally no damage was cleared off the board. How is that possible? But yeah, even so, obviously that is a pretty, lol way to close out the game there. But for Beguiet, that's what the deck is supposed to do. It is supposed to beat the Even Paladin. All the players I've talked to who have been bringing the Even Shaman say it's very favoured in that matchup. That's why you bring it. And so Beguiet putting himself in a decent spot by taking that victory. But then the thing I start to doubt about Even Shaman is, can it get that second victory?
Can which in last year any other deck
exactly, which is very important indeed. Against the likes of Warlock, you are really going to be struggling. But already looking at this hand and these decisions from Beguiet, this outlines perfectly what his game plan is going to be.
Right.
It's not aggro, it's value.
Yeah, Hagatha, just the only card, not the only card that matters, but the only card that really matters in this.
Yes,
so important.
Yeah, you are correct.
Going back to that last game, you highlighted it at the time. It was so important that he didn't play that Swamp Ooze.
Yes.
Going into that Consecration. That enabled him to get those extra hits out of those 2/3s and just get the damage done. Choosing to go on along with the chain gang. Shroom Brewer.
Yeah. Not the matchup you are putting this in for, but could be useful at some point, I believe. I've seen this matchup go to fatigue before. Usually the Death Knight's Gul'dan comes out on top, as opposed to Hagatha. The hero power is just too strong. But I've seen it before where the Hagatha can just bring it all the way to fatigue with the likes of Hex, Healing Rain, and cards like that, if they can be generated off of Hagatha.
So this is again that balancing act I've talked about already way too much today, where you've got to sort of pressure your opponent, but Shaman, it's going to be that waiting game until a Hagatha comes up. The rest is just going to be posturing, really, in this early game. Get a bit of damage through to face, maybe force Orange to have to use a pact earlier than he wants on something he doesn't want to use it on, perhaps. But really, it's all just sort of tiptoeing around for a bit.
Yeah, and there are comparable cards to what you're trying to do in Even Paladin, because Earthen Might is kind of like Babby Blessing of Kings. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you're getting that buff, which is very good against Warlock. Like, buffing minions has traditionally been incredibly strong against Control and Q blocks. As I literally can't even remember of the name of that card. Grim Necromancer, I think maybe is what that card is called. 4 mana 2/4 that summons 2 1/1 skeletons, I believe.
Sounds right.
Basically, this is what Even and Odd decks are doing to my beautiful game of Hearthstone. We're having to play trash like this on the Dreamhack circuit. I'm not happy.
Just trashing. You wouldn't say it to his face. He wears all the finest clothes and hangs out with all the chillest dudes, man. You just wouldn't dare say it to him.
Good meme, my friend. Solid meme.
If you get meme points from Derek, you're in a good day. All right, so the pact picked up here for Orange, and now he's got to let the thinking begin.
Yeah, a little bit awkward here because obviously, like you said, Dark Pact in the Control Warlock against the more aggressive strategies is reserved for Possessed Lackey. In Q block, you want to save it for the cube the vast majority of the time against all but the most aggressive decks. But this turn is just far from what Orange wants to do, because obviously Be Quiet here is expecting Hellfire or Defile. This is what when you don't go tall on a board and instead you go wide with small minions, you always expect to be met with a board clear by Warlock. And he's kind of the stars have aligned for him to the point where that has not happened. So he can really start to turn things up with the Flame Tongue Totem now and the Earthen Might.
Yeah, Flame Tongue Totem is like the closest thing you have to that Blessing of Kings, like I was saying a minute ago. It's like, it's nowhere near as good because the minions still just get blown up by Hellfires, but at least it does the damage it needs to do.
And you can cash it in immediately, because using it for 4 damage to face as a kind of like a pseudo Corcoran Elite, as I think it's sometimes compared to, is not what it's kind of most powerful for. You want to be trading so that you get the minions slide along and they get the buffs depending on where they are. In relation to the Flame Tongue Totem, and it's going to be a lot of damage coming through here because of that 4 Be Quiet.
I still love the way that a lot of damage with a Shaman deck is defined as 7 plus killing a bad.
It's not bad. Like, this is a threatening board by any threat. 7 damage on the board requires an answer.
Let's be absolutely clear here. This deck is a real deck, and it's fine. But I'm still going to laugh at it all day because it's made up of the most hideous collection of junk you've ever seen in a Hearthstone deck. But it's great that. Synergy matters.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the important thing here.
Those are some of my favorite decks. Like Tempo Rogue for the longest time was just a load of rubbish. Like, it was not good cards in there, but there was at some point it just managed to work out to where it was an actual real deck.
I mean, Patron Warrior didn't have a good Hearthstone card in the deck apart from Death's Bite. Like, it just had an absolute bunch of shambles.
You are talking nonsense, my friend.
It was like the best deck ever.
Yeah.
But each card in it, okay, Whirlwind's okay.
Frothing Berserker's a sick card.
Ah, no, it's not.
Yes,
of course it is.
absurd.
Yeah, of course it is. I agree.
Neil.
Yeah, there were several decent
Wash your
cards
mouth out.
There were several decent cards in it.
I get your point then. I understand your point. I'm just being facetious.
Good. I'll look at what that means later. Okay, so Be Quiet continuing this process of just annoying Orange with this board.
It's very annoying. And still, for Orange, not that board clear available. He would obviously not be quite able to make Defile work even if he had it, but just a Hellfire to clear off most of this board is like, fine, you're happy. He can put up a Void Lord in the way, I suppose, for the moment. Well, that's vulnerable to a Hex that could come down at any point for Be Quiet.
No Hex there, though. No board clear for Orange. It's like, must be so frustrating for each of them thinking, well, if I only had this, I would win now. It's one of those games where whoever loses it goes away and says, my opponent was so lucky I didn't get this. But neither of them have got whatever this is right now.
But it's worth pointing out right at the start here that for Be Quiet, his keeps off the mulligan were what? Earthen Might and Hagatha. So he was clearly, he was not anticipating that this would happen. He was not trying to get, I would imagine, this very strong early game. He was looking to do decently well, stay ahead just about on board, and then follow up with a Hagatha to go for the super value plan. It's kind of gone better than that for him. So even if he ends up losing the board here for a good while, he can still be pretty happy, I think, actually, because he got in a good amount of damage at the start of the game and took up a fair few of the resources from his opponent.
But also, this is why it's posturing to some degree, because Orange is on 26 after all that and has a Void Lord in play. But, like, the important thing is the resources that have been used up. Orange is a little bit lower than he'd like to be on resources for the future.
I'm just trying to think what resources have actually been used,
right,
though. Like, it was, what, Stonehill and Stegadon. And that's like it. Like,
okay,
no,
they haven't.
No Hellfire, no Defile, not even any heals have been used other than Dark Pact.
But there's also this board that needs dealing with, which is going to be dealt with because Orange has just drawn the answer.
I mean, you know, obviously the first point of reference I'm looking at is Defile Shroombrewer. You clear off the board, get a nice minion in play. You could see Doomsayer coming down, but that just seems like incredibly free reign for your opponent to go coin Hagatha. And when your opponent's kept a card for this long and it off the mulligan and it has not been played,
yeah, it's Hagatha.
What could it be? Like, can it be anything other than Hagatha? Alakir, would you keep? Like, no?
It's Hagatha. Like, it's just Hagatha. Like, card reading used to look like some sort of dark art when Firebat used to just be the only person who could do it or bothered about it. But as time's gone by, things like this now, especially with various statistics sites available, people know that this is kept X% of the time of this matchup, therefore it is this.
Yeah,
I think a lot of great card reading going on, but when it comes to mulligan decisions, people tend to know what you've kept now.
I think I did actually prefer the Shroombrew there because, like you said, I mean, maybe I'm misreading here, and there was another card that would be kept for that long and not be played. I can't think of any off the top of my head because, like you said, in Even Shaman, there is not that one power card. It's not like in Even Paladin where you have Call to Arms and Tarim, where you always keep them. And like Tarim, you know, you keep against Warlock.
Maybe he wasn't happy with it taking 3. Maybe he'd rather have a 4/4 turn later than a 4/1 against a deck that can do 1 but can't do 4.
Very fair point. And if you go for Shroombrewer, it allows him to play minions instead of playing Hagatha, and maybe, you know, you want him to play Hagatha instead of developing a board.
Oh, that's how much he values his Shroombrewer anyway.
Yeah, okay. I mean, this is just trying to set up... Okay, sorry, that's another reason to keep Doomsayer, because he picked up this Doomsayer off the top, which allows him to bridge perfectly into Voidlord Gul'dan. Whereas if he had not found that Doomsayer off the top, he would not have been able to keep his opponent's board clear on turns 8 and 9. So he wouldn't have been able to play this Voidlord on an empty board and might have taken a bit more damage.
Like you say, he has bridged that gap, and now things are going to be difficult. But Hagatha's pretty decent. Like, the first 2 or 3 cards often, like, they're not that great on average, but then every now and again you just pick up a bomb, and all the way through from now to the end of the game, Orange has to play around Bloodlust. Doesn't matter if you've got it or not. It's
no! Do you really play around that? How many Shaman spells actually are there?
30-something.
Something like that. Okay, so it's not out.
By the end of the game, like, you've got to make sure the board is clear, because by the end of the game, you're sort of 30% or something. I can't remember. I did all this once when I was young.
I mean, what are the power cards? It's worth bringing up. You've got, like, Bloodlust is obviously incredibly powerful.
Hex,
Hex. The Spirit Echoes is incredibly powerful, because then you can then just end up with a million more spells after the fact as well. Get that real late game value going.
The problem is most of them are garbage.
Yeah, that is true.
Like, zap, well done, you zapped me. Ouch, it really hurt me. Please stop.
So as for Be Quiet here, because he managed to find a very timely Hex indeed, he's not under that much pressure at the moment, and probably won't be for the rest of the game. So I guess for Orange, his main game plan at the moment is not die, just to stay alive for the moment, and you should be all right. And then after that, find Rin. He wants to get that very quickly so we can go Rin, Pact, start playing the seals, and destroy his opponent's deck before fatigue eventually gets to him.
This is another annoying thing when you're playing Hagatha, is, you know, this overload you have to manage carefully. Which is something that, because it's not managing your main deck, you have to just make sure you don't mess it up. Yeah. It's easy to say, but, you know, we've already seen one of the best aggro players in the world forget to attack with a deep anything can be messed up if you try hard enough.
He ran out of time. He
chose not to.
Extreme misplay. Yeah. You know, also worth pointing out while we're talking about overload, the Sapphire Spellstone for Shaman can be very powerful in this matchup as well. If you can copy, you know, if a minion like Alakir sticks around for a turn and you summon 3 copies of that, you're probably going to win that game.
That turns out well. That's like your own cube combo.
Obviously, that's an incredibly optimistic scenario where you get the Spellstone, upgrade it twice, and Alakir sticks. But, you know, it's things like that that can happen when Hagatha is in play.
Yeah, you just got to know all of these intricate details. I've got to admit, I'm going to be learning them as we go to some extent over the
I think we all are. It's a learning journey.
We're going to see a lot of them. There's going to be a lot of Even Shaman here, I think.
absolutely.
Not a lot, huge amount, but like it's
More than you'd
sixth
expect.
or seventh biggest deck, I would think. As opposed to people who probably don't even know what it is. It's only really started emerging on ladder properly in the last week or two.
And that's the interesting thing I find about this Dreamhack is, you know, like I said at the start, a lot of the same decks are being brought. Most players or lineups you're seeing on Twitter are Paladin, Priest, Warlock, Quest Rogue. Like, it's very standard decks. But everyone who's bringing the slightly off-meta choices feels like they're in a really good spot. Like the players with Tempo Mage that can prey on the likes of Quest Rogue and Q-Block. Players with Even Shaman being able to ban the deck that beats both Even Paladin and Even Shaman and take some nice victories against the other ones. You know, I like the thinking, the experimentation from these players that we're seeing.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that this tournament will not be won by one of the standard lineups. I've got I don't know yet, and again, you know, I haven't had time to
You don't know yet. I'm glad you don't know
That'd
yet.
be bad, wouldn't it? Hey, I know who wins. And it's Glazer.
Yeah, excuse me, Ben Brode. Sorry,
Yeah.
who's going to win the tournament? Oh, sorry, that was on
Sorry,
stream.
not here at the moment. But yeah, so yeah, tell you now that Glazer's won the tournament, off we go. If he wins now, there's going to be so many Sean head moments. Right, back to the Hearthstone in progress.
As Be Quiet is picking up some respectable spells here because, okay, with the way it currently stands, it's not looking like he will reach fatigue because he will just die. He won't be able to mount any pressure at all. And if Rin is found anytime soon, Orange will just win. And even if not, the Gul'dan hero power should just lead him to a victory at this point. But if it does get to that fatigue point, Healing Rain is an incredibly powerful card, as are the likes. You know, all these heal spells are very powerful. Something like Ancestral... Oh, no, not Ancestral Healing.
They all have the same name. It's really
What's the card
confusing.
that Death Rattle summons a copy of this minion? It's not Ancestral.
Ancestral Spirit.
Ancestral Spirit.
They
It's
all
like
have
Druid.
the
It's like
same
Power of
name.
the Wild, Mark of the Wild.
Bill of the Wild. Stan of the Wild.
Stan of the Wild. Shush.
Mark of the Wild's brother. But yeah, I mean, they are awkward, but I know which one you mean.
Ancestral Might.
Ancestral Might.
Ancestral Might? I'm going with that.
It might be. All right, another Hex.
Yeah.
Important card.
But still, one minion left in hand. And this is why we see the likes of the Murloc version of this Even Shaman being thrown around. Was it Wyra was playing an Even Shaman with Ice Fishing and the Ghostlight Oracle, I think it's called, the Echo Murloc, because it can just give you ridiculous amounts of value with this Hagatha hero power later on in the game. Whereas in this scenario, not having any card draw in your deck, one minion a turn, it's very slow, and the Warlock hero power will just start smorking him. Like, it will just kill him eventually.
It will, or yeah, I mean, he'll win because of it, because he'll just kill every minion slowly, torturous manner. And like you say, it's not the Rin killing your opponent's deck that wins in fatigue, it's the fact it just makes so many actual minions later on. And, you know, if you get it early enough, sure, the fatigue's nice, but... And this is where, with this lineup, you're supposed to win the Paladin Mirror. Then you get into the Warlock, and then your Shaman's ready to counter their Paladin, and so are their other stuff. Or you're supposed to just matches up against the Paladin, off you go. Interesting, of the 4 players we've seen so far, 3 have opened with Paladin, and the other one got it banned?
Yes, he did, I believe, yeah.
So everyone going with that sweet
yeah.
potential of you can't beat my Paladin easily, I'm just going to hit you in the face with Paladin things.
Which I guess is another reason why the Even Shaman is good, because it's an icebreaker.
Yeah, nice.
Lol. Because it's something that you can break the serve. You can stop the Even Paladin just from sweeping. You don't even need it as a counter deck, because I guess the thinking is maybe you could line that up first, but okay, I guess what we're clearly seeing from Be Quiet is it beats the Paladin, but it's easily counterable. Like, if you're bringing Even Shaman and you line up against the likes of this Warlock, even in the best case scenario where he got a decent early game, he found a Hex on a Void Lord, he found Hagatha in the starting hand, he just looks really far behind here, if you're asking me.
But those decks are okay in Last Hero Standing, right? Like, if it's Conquest and your deck's easily counterable and you walk into a counter line, you lose 3-0 with that deck, you lose.
Okay.
In this, you throw it out there, if it goes wrong, it loses, you get all your other 2 decks.
Right, okay, so I'm saying it's not a not a bad Last Hero Standing, but it's not a good starting deck,
sure,
maybe. It's a counter deck. Right, yeah.
And that's what a lot of good Last Hero Standing lineups have, is a starter and a couple of counters, and you try and win 3-2. Unfortunately, your opponents are trying to stop you doing that, and that annoys me every time. How dare they try to beat me?
And so Orange obviously having to be a little bit careful here. How does he meter out his resources to survive into the late game? Because in the course of this game, he can't be thinking, oh, what will I do if he plays this minion? It's what will I do when he plays this minion? Every card will probably be found before this game is over.
And how far in front is Orange? Orange is so far in front. Even things like double Bloodlust are things he's going to start considering, just because what's the only way I lose this? He's not quite there yet, but at some point, it just reaches the what 2 cards in the wall of Hearthstone beat me? And the answer is, of course, Naturalize and Spreading Plague.
You and your bloomin' Take 2 deck, Neil.
Yeah, I love it.
It's so bad.
Well, there's the Sea Giant, not in the nick of time at all.
It's not bad. Like,
it's fine.
You can just play it for 10 mana and then try and hit. I mean, like, what? If you go Giant on 10 mana and it doesn't die somehow, and then you go Wind Fury into Lava Burst, or you find a Rock Biter off of it, something like that. Like, there's stuff you can do, maybe.
Unfortunately, no. Warlock, who has drawn 27 cards, happens to have an answer.
Yup.
Oddly enough. But yeah,
what do you know?
And if he draws another Sea Giant, then sure, maybe things get interesting in his world. Well, also Hagatha hasn't really sort of hagged up properly. Wow.
Pretty good.
Derek the Prophet.
Pretty good, eh? I mean, it's not going to do anything because it definitely dies before he has a chance to do it. Like, Hellfire Spellstone, or even just, the simple answer of Twisting Nether. There's a million ways to deal with this. It will never survive until the next turn, but pretty cool. I guess the Rock
It's definitely pretty cool. Unfortunately, he's facing down lethal over 2 turns as well, because Orange has double Hellfire and 2 pings.
But, however, Be Quiet. This is, I think, the fact that he found Healing Rain, obviously it hasn't done anything yet as he finds the Spirit Echoes. Okay, I had to stop my train of thought, because that is the best card you can get off Hagatha.
And the best card you can get it on, pretty much.
Yeah.
Apart from maybe Alakir, but yeah. Okay.
Basically, this is like now a chance, because the point I was talking about just a second ago was Healing Rain hadn't done anything obviously up until that point, but what it did is it allowed Be Quiet to play liberally with his health total, going for a double attack into Lord Godfrey, putting down to like 10 health.
Sure.
He can do that because he heals back up with Healing Rain, and then by finding that copy of Spirit Echoes.
Now, if you can find another Spirit Echo and put it on the 4 of these that he can get.
4 cards left in his opponent's deck. He's way ahead on Fatigue. Way ahead. So if it does go to Fatigue and there's no pressure on board, Be Quiet maybe can start to wrestle this back, possibly. But with a Lich King now also found, there's going to have to be some mighty good spells being brewed up here by Hagatha.
I like what you did there.
Thank you.
It's nice. I don't usually comment, but that was particularly nicely. All right, so Twisting Nether number 2, obviously with only those 4 cards or 3 cards left in hand, Be Quiet knows the second Twisting Nether is present, so can't overcommit, really.
Absolutely.
But again, with the Spirit Echo, he's fine sticking stuff down because he's going to get plenty of how long can this go ons. He's just going to chain gangs and they're just going to keep coming. No real damage picked up. I guess Lava Burst plus Rock Biter.
And the thing is,
something.
While Be Quiet is miles ahead on Fatigue, or he has way more cards left in his deck, I should say, as it's a little bit ambiguous. Yeah. He's still just going to die. He needs another healing spell if he's going to have any chance here, because there's still, 2 board clears left available to Orange, and that hero power, which can keep smacking to face every single turn. But that's just not the card you need.
That's the point when we're saying that there's some good cards. There are some stinkers as well.
There are some real rotters.
You always have to go one better, don't you, Doug? And yeah, the process is coming to an end, I think.
Yeah. I'm struggling to see a way out here. Ancestral Healing heals up a taunt to maybe be put in the way of his opponent's minions. And obviously he can clear off the board here with the likes of Lightning Storm, but it's just not going to be doing enough to keep him alive. The hero power, the damage from Gul'dan hero power, equivalent to an upgraded steady shot from the Hunter, it finishes the game surprisingly quickly. Yeah, and going to be 2-1 to Orange, unless we've missed some crazy pickup here while I'm writing down 2-1 to Orange in my notes. And, you know, this has been going the way it often does in Last Hero Standing. It's always brought up how important that first victory is, because if it goes, I'm doing quotation marks here, the expected route where it's counter, 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 Orange will win 3-2 here because he will be able to counter his opponent's final deck. The question is, can he do that? It's just a Warlock remaining for Be Quiet. Probably a Q block is what we see from most of these players.
And then Orange has
he's got the Rogue, which is very likely a Quest Rogue once again, which not necessarily a super favorite. If it was Quest Rogue versus Q block, that would be a great way to close things out. It's a very cool matchup, I think.
Since people have been, we'll talk about it when it comes up, but we've got quite a bit to say about Quest Rogue versus Warlock, I think.
Yeah.
Especially as I can't pronounce that class.
I see you.
It's so annoying sometimes. But yeah, it's going to be interesting if this does go to that game number 5. There are definitely ways you can approach that matchup that people didn't used to use.
Absolutely. It's, yeah, like you say, it's not as one-sided as, you know, against Control Warlock, or sorry, Control Warrior or Control Mage, where you never lose. You cannot lose as the Quest Rogue as it currently
And it's
stands.
not as simple as against a Priest, where the Priest can win if it just goes Pyromancer into Dragon to hit you.
Yeah, it can curve out.
It's a really messy lineup, matchup.
I mean, I always kind of hold back on that because I did witness probably my favorite game of Hearthstone in history of Muzzy in Copa America Season 2.
Right.
Where I believe he was up against Nao Gudan and got a 3-0 sweep with against Quest Rogue with all his control decks. It was completely absurd. I could not believe it.
Yeah, watch that if you get the chance. That's definitely
the semi-finals as Orange finds Rin as literally the final card in his deck, and he's still going to win. I don't really see a way that he loses here. If he goes for Twisting Nether Hero Power Face, he obviously only loses to Healing Rain, or are there even any other healing cards left
I don't
in
think
Shaman?
he even loses to Healing Rain because Be Quiet's out of ways to generate. Let's say he generates a Healing Rain.
You're right.
If you generated it with your last minion or your last one minion. So incredibly, even with Rin down the bottom there, Orange has just used that one resource. TLK.
Obviously not going to be doing the job there. And as we expected, Orange takes it up 2-1. That was a close game. It was kind of closer than I was expecting it to be. Things were going in the favor of Be Quiet for a while. And, you know, this is, if you're going to have a game where it's decided by the Death Knights, I love the ones where both players find their Death Knights right at the start. Because
was it close?
Closer than I expected,
long
is what I said. It was long.
Sure.
And, you know, Orange was down till 17 health. Like, if it had been a little bit more fatigue, if Be Quiet had managed to survive for a little bit longer, maybe that burst damage could have come out of nowhere to close out the game. But like you said, it didn't feel that close, even with Rin being literally the final card in the deck.
I mean, if Gul'dan had been the bottom card, that might have made it a little bit more interesting or interesting or something. So
truly awful.
Be Quiet now has to win what is likely a mirror, but obviously if he's got the cube, he's in a decent-ish spot.
Yeah, it's, you know...
Then he's got to find a way of beating Rogue. I mean, that's the bit that matters.
Right, so if it is the Q block, which we can clearly see, it is Prince Tal'Daram in there, pretty much solidifies it as being the cube version rather than the control version. And he's found a pretty decent hand to be getting on with the skull right at the start as well.
Orange just keeping the owl, just cut down some of the shenanigans we saw, like Green Sheep style earlier on, realizing that his early game is his biggest weakness, and so cutting down the take 15 shenanigans is important.
I find keeping or even playing silence in this matchup very interesting, because if this is the one copy of silence in Orange deck, which we assume it is, you usually only run one copy of silence. Once that's down, Q-Block can do the most disgusting things imaginable. Like, when you're not afraid of silence, that's when Q-Block goes insane. You go like, you know, cube onto a Doomguard, and then you Tal'Daram it, and then you faceless that Tal'Daram, or something ridiculous like that on a couple of turns, because when you're not vulnerable to silence, you can just go completely crazy.
What I think's interesting is Orange now doesn't have to keep that all day.
Yes, that's
Everyone
true.
has seen him keep Owl on stream. So people are going to hold back against him if he keeps one or two cards and maybe worry about the Owl. So not only is it a play for this game, but it's a play for the entire day. He can keep it if he wants, he can get rid of it if he wants. But his opponents have now got to play around it for the rest of this tournament.
I like it. And so it's like showing your dominance.
Yeah, I'm going to keep Owls. What are you going to do? And then just never keep it again.
I like your thinking. I think it's probably not going to work out that way. I think when you're keeping a Q-Block hand, there are cards you're looking for that you look for 100% of the time.
Well, that's Gul'dan, right?
Right, yeah. Gul'dan? No, Giants, Cubes.
Sure. Oh, sorry,
Skull.
the Q-Block side.
Yes, the Q-Block side, yes, sorry, yeah, absolutely.
I just like sometimes, especially if you're on stream, like I have been hundreds of thousands of matches. Oh no, maybe not. It's just doing something a bit weird.
So this is such an interesting point. This is the exact position we found ourselves in with Gara versus Green Sheep, as we see here with Orange versus Be Quiet, when Gara played the Doomsayer onto an empty board from his opponent to prepare for a Giant. And I was going to say, as Orange was leaning towards that Beetle, if he had gone for that, I really would not have liked it. I think
he was ready to go all-out attack there, and it was worth thinking about, because like you play that, your opponent plays Giant. You hit them for 6, they're down to 16. Your opponent plays Cube Giant. But that's why it's worth. I'd rather someone pay the attention to that possibility and then realise, hang on, 16, 10, oh, I'm dead to 3 Giants by now, than not even think about it.
But this just works out so nicely, because now he has the possibility for coin into Lackey, which obviously, as I spotted in the last series, Gara could not do because he had already drawn both copies of Void Lord at this point. Orange is not. So he could have considered going for it there, but even with the ability to pull out a Doom Guard on the following turn, still does not think it's worth it. I guess the thinking is coin can be very useful in this matchup for an early Gul'dan, an early Void Lord if it's in your hand, as we see there. And even if he needs a Void Lord right away, you can just go Lackey Coin Pact.
Yeah, and again, till Tuesday, then that stops. It's really weird, right? Just because you Doomsayer on 4 to stop the Giant doesn't mean they have to have it. It's always still irritating when they then go turn 5 Giant, even though you've done the right thing and slowed them down.
They don't always have it, but they always have it. They always do. Yeah, obviously it's a hyperbole that they always have it, but it feels that way often as the Q block because they're tapping so much and they mulligan so aggressively for Skull and Giants.
There's going to be a lot of Giants.
Yeah. Love this as well from Be Quiet. Like, even if he had Demons in hand, the Skull I still think would not be worth it because, like I was saying earlier on, if they have weapon destruction, it's dreadful for you. And even if they don't, you want to be going with higher pressure immediately. 8 damage is better than the 5 you could potentially get with Doomguard.
I also agree with doing it all now because coin Nether, and I was going to say this before the Nether was picked up, is an issue coming up. So put it out there, put all your cheeky 8/8s out there early.
Yeah.
I don't think you call an 8/8 cheeky, it's probably a bit more excessive than that. and do what you can before your opponent starts using their board clears.
Yeah. As Orange is starting to put up a pretty respectable wall here, and this is the situation Gara was so nearly finding himself in the previous series where he had Rin in hand, starting to get Void Lords out, starting to get some resemblance of pulling things back in his favor.
Green Sheep had the Skull in play, which was meant that Demons were spewing all into the board and just not making it pleasant, whereas Orange has got a lot more time than Gara had.
Yeah. He does indeed, and he's got Rin already is the main thing. So after he's stabilized, if he's able to hold on to this pact, we can maybe see a Rin pact on like turn 9 or turn 10 or even turn 15, something like that. As long as he's stabilized, that's probably his best way of pulling things back. Because at the moment, for Be Quiet, after these Giants are dealt with, he does not have a power play. Even if he finds Gul'dan, no Doomguards have died. There's no real power turn that he can push a bunch of pressure.
Yeah, his hand is actually pretty.
It sucks.
Yeah. Okay, sure. His hand sucks.
It's bad.
Derek for the lesson.
I mean, if he finds a way to cheat out a demon, then he can go Lackey Pact, which is obviously pretty nice. But
here we go.
Okay, actually, maybe his hand isn't that bad. Now that he's Skull with a Void Lord and Cuban Pact, it's not as bad as I was anticipating.
But it needs to be good because
Yeah.
Orange's previous turn made a deep impact on this game.
That was pretty good. I'll give you that one.
So, Be Quiet's got to find this way to generate pressure. Obviously, the Hellfire to clear up the 1/3s is on his mind, but he can't.
Would you go Defile, Attack, Hellfire?
You get 8 through, is it worth it? There's a lot
Their starting health total, like it.
Yeah. We're both just saying like that because it looks like a piece of... We said this about Green Sheep and he found ways through it, but he did have a significantly more tricksy hand than this.
He did indeed.
So there's Cube and there's Pact in hand for Be Quiet. Where else can he get stuff from? If he picks up a Doomguard immediately, that's a lot of damage available. Yeah,
Doomguard and Lackey is kind of what he's looking for at the moment. Obviously something like Gul'dan in a relatively timely fashion could be good now that he's got the Void Lord ready to throw down.
Another thing he has to do now, on top of all of his other issues, is keep Rin under control. Like,
Keep
you
up
only,
the pressure.
You only do that by
Yep.
keeping up the pressure.
Yeah, that's your only counterplay at this point. Now that Dirty Rat's gone, and Cold Light as well, you are relying less on fatigue, obviously. Obviously, you know, those cards were not played that much in Q-Block. But you have to keep up the pressure, like you said.
And Orange, obviously knowing this, because this matchup has been around a very long time and Orange is a very good player, has to find a way to make sure that pressure is dealt with as efficiently as possible.
That's the key word, efficiently as possible. There are multiple ways to deal with this board. It's not difficult to find it clear. You've got Godfrey, you've got double Hellfire, you've got Twisting Nether, a whole bunch of easy ways to clear this board. It's which is the most valuable card going forward. What do I need to hold on to if I'm going to have a chance against Gul'dan, Lackey, Cube Pact, cards like that you need to have a condition against.
No Spellstone in hand, right?
Nope.
Tired old eyes can't see one, so Hellfire becomes a little bit messy for you for the next few turns as well. You'd rather say that. Oh, you're oohing. This is always bad. What's happening?
Well, these are not like... This is not the situation you want to be in when your opponent has a massive amount of power on the board. And, you know, you have a good wall. Like, you have a good taunt wall to protect you for the moment. But, I don't know, if you're met with Silence and Defile, like, that's pretty bad for you, especially if a Doomguard comes down. Like, obviously, I'm talking about multiple card combos that mess this up. But
they happen. I mean,
they happen.
You're both 2/3 way through your deck or whatever at this point. So, yeah, you can have that happen to you.
Beguiet's hand, you know, it was a good start, but I think you can start to make the read for Orange that his hand is not that good. I don't know, like, it has a lot of these kind of tech cards and anti-aggro cards like Defile and Spellbreaker, like that. It's interesting.
Beguiet doesn't look uncomfortable at all with the situation he's in.
I mean, that's what I mean. He's not in that bad of a situation. He's still got a good amount of damage on board, and he's tapping very aggressively because he knows he's not winning in fatigue, with Rin already down, and the fact that there's obviously a whole bunch of Void Lords that are going to come back with Gul'dan eventually. He needs to tap and close out the game as quick as possible.
Well, there goes the vote. So it looks like he's just going to clear this lot up again pretty cheekily. I'm going to use that word no more.
It's just so unfortunate for Giants that they just line up that one health incorrectly against Void Lords.
Do you think it's unfortunate, or do you think it's by design? Seriously, it's just too much of a coincidence number.
You're probably right.
It's like all the minions from Rin adding up to 30-30. That's not a coincidence.
No. I think it's a lucky happenstance because Void Lord is the stats. Void Lord was never going to be any other stat.
Sure,
like, it was always going to be a 3/9 because of the Void Walker, like, you know, three Void Walkers together.
Handlock-esque decks are things they will have tested.
Fair enough. It wasn't always going to cost 9 mana, though, is the point. Like,
sure. It should have cost 14.
Should have cost 7. It would only be a good card if it cost 7 mana, obviously. Everyone knows that.
Yeah. It's just been nerfed to 7. Lackey Pact is what it now costs. All right, so Orange is going to try and start getting these seals out, and Beguiet's done a good job of stopping that so far.
But it's going to start slowing down. Like I said, his hand sucked earlier, which was maybe an overstatement. Now his hand does suck. This is a really bad hand because... okay, that's like a nice little improvement. He can get out a Doomguard now.
But it was almost impossible not to draw something good there. But this is about as good as it gets, and he has got Cube and Pact available.
And I think this is on point here for Beguiet, because obviously what looked like a pretty decent turn actually was going for attack with the Void Lord, cube it, and then pact it, or even maybe even just cube it, but probably pact it as well, because it's the lowest health it can possibly be. You're regenerating 2 Void Lords to a full 3/9 stature. But I think for Beguiet, what he realized is he does not want to do that, to stagnate the game and bring it to the point where they're both attacking their giant Void Lords into each other's giant Void Lords.
Yeah,
he wants to cube and pack Doomguards.
Nobody ever gets through. Yeah. They do, but it never matters.
And then Rin wins.
Yeah. But as it stands, I mean... if he picks up Gul'dan after getting some stuff out there, some aggressive Void Lords, Doomguard stuff, then he could be in a good spot. Being pretty greedy here, and I like it.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly thinking, because Defile there was the obvious play I was looking at. You get out a Doomguard and you can attack to face. He doesn't want a Doomguard just out there facing the world on its own. He wants it to come out on his turn so that he can guarantee a cube and pact to really start pushing the pressure.
And this Gul'dan might be in the nick of time. Things are just starting to get a bit difficult there. Oh! Orange absolutely whiffs.
Oh my God!
And that could just be game losing.
Are you kidding me?
For those at home who don't know what's going on, there's no 3 9s on Orange's side of the board.
Yeah, you resurrect random demons back, and he got literally 0 Void Lords. How does that happen?
And that's exactly what Orange has got to stop himself from thinking until after the match. Remember, he still has his rogue up his sleeve should he lose this to that play. But this has just turned the game on its head. Obviously, he has the Nether, but then the next Doomguard's coming out next turn.
Yeah.
Oh, not now, it's not. Wow.
I don't know. Okay, so obviously Beguiet is feeling pretty good about that one, but even if a Void Lord had been pulled back there with, I think, like, you could maybe call it average 1 Void Lord there, with how many Void Walkers have died. I obviously don't know the exact stats, but very rough estimate there. You know, there were ways for Beguiet to deal with that. He would have got giant Doomguards out attacking to face. He could have gone for, obviously, a Lord Godfrey, which would very likely have got him a complete board clear, or even just Defiled to clear off a few of those Void Walkers. He probably would have been able to wrestle this back. Obviously, however, with a lot less damage going through to face.
Orange was happy not to deal with the skull there. He knows there's probably another Doomguard here.
Well, he knows there probably isn't.
Sure, sorry, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Because it hadn't been pulled out on the previous turns. But I think it could only have come down on that turn.
Yeah, so he was happy to sneak the extra 3 in there. And this is suddenly, with Tal'Daram as well, a load more damage going into the face. But still, you might not even want to play Tal'Daram. It starts leaving up those numbers for Godfrey to take out.
So, I mean, what the benefits are, you get damage to face on this turn, extra 3 damage, and you're getting your opponent very low indeed, and they have no more Void Lords with which to play with.
Right.
With which to play.
But does Beguiet have any damage left himself? Yes, he does. He has Gul'dan in the
deck. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. That's the other point, is Tal'Daram gives you another Doomguard to resurrect back with Gul'dan. The downsides, however, is you can no longer Tal'Daram a cube that might have a Doomguard inside. And as you said, Godfrey becomes a little bit easier to clear off the board here. However, that 5/6 bridge to kill off the Doomguard completely is missing without the hero power. So maybe that's what it has to be. Slow down with the hero powers to face for the moment, and instead just rely on clearing the board.
Yeah, he's going to go for Stonehill and try and find an answer, because he is dead very, very soon. Huh.
You just think about mana usage, because if he wants to fit in like a Hellfire, I guess, he probably wouldn't want to. Like, Witchwood Grizzly is definitely what I'm looking at here. Oh no, the stats just suck. Like, what do you get? A 3/6?
Yes, you might as well have the 3/5.
Fair
no
enough.
down
Yeah,
Fel
good
Guard
point,
after you hit 10 crystals, because you get it back next turn.
And destroying the skull, yeah. And Orange doing as good of a job as he can to pull this back. I guess he's realizing if Gul'dan comes down next card, he needs to be able to pull this back, as Beguiet has a copy of Rin in his Q block, far from a necessary inclusion in the deck, but giving him a lot more game in these kind of matchups.
Yeah, he has stuff he can do here as well. He can set up a Godfrey by trading in his Librarian.
Yes, he can, and his Doomguard would survive, but it would die to a hero power then, which is not ideal.
Sure, it's just a case of... Oh. Every time we're like, yeah, that's a great card.
Yeah,
now, what do we do with
looking at Defile maths now, like if you go for Faceless on the Doomguard and then Defile was worth considering. Instead here, clearly he realizes his opponent cannot really clear the board here, or if he can, he has to expend great resources to do so. So he wants to keep his Doomguard outside the range of hero power, which I think is a pretty nice play.
Outside the range of Owl Godfrey is also not a thing. Remember, Orange kept this Owl in his opening hand.
Okay.
Do you think it was a bluff of any sort? Because it's just done nothing.
It has done absolutely nothing, but I don't know. I was going to say it's like it's stopped Beguiet from going for plays like just cube without a pact.
Right.
But the thing is, it doesn't have to be in hand to do that. It just has to be in your deck.
He doesn't know he's going to keep it.
Yeah, exactly.
People later on today know that, but yeah. All right, so he's going to actually get his Disciple down as well, his Rin, and not too far behind the times.
Yeah.
How that? Okay, it's open list. That's why the eye was kept. Anyway.
Really? Why does that make a difference?
Because the Rin means you...
Oh, sorry, the Rin was there. Right, okay, yeah. Not because the Owl is open information, but because the Rin is open information. Okay, sorry, I understand. Yes, good point. So,
Stonehill into something good. as Orange starts to stabilise once again with his hero power, but once again, every time he does this, he's not playing seals, he's not applying any pressure of his own.
It's true, but I don't know, until Gul'dan is found for Be Quiet, there's no pressure left. He's got nothing. He's played both Giants, both Doom Guards, you know, a cube's gone. He's got another cube here and a faceless, but what's he going to copy with them?
Well, the thing is, it's inevitable he's going to find it very soon.
Right, yeah.
So Orange needs to find a way to stop that from mattering.
Yes, that's the thing. It's like he will find it very soon, but there's a difference. But the difference between 1 turn away and 3 turns away is massive. It's absolutely worlds apart.
And the thing Orange needs to do is play to turn that 3 into 2 or whatever he can do to make it 1 turn fewer than whatever the key number is.
And he's just going, it looks like here, all out on the packs, which means it's kind of swapped around. Orange is still utilizing his seals, getting himself in a good position to play Azari, but he's just on the pressure plan. He's just going to kill his opponent before Azari can really do anything for Be Quiet, unless that Gul'dan can be found.
But all the time that Be Quiet's throwing out his seals, it's more time bought.
By Orange?
Against Orange. Yeah. It's just like Orange either has to throw out his own seals, which are going to get just defiled away, or he has to go face, which means that Be Quiet keeps just throwing out his own seals and putting pressure back on. It's like a two-pronged attack, the ticking time bomb that is the Gul'dan, and the fact these seals have to be dealt with. Yeah, so Orange sensing a bit of urgency finally.
Yeah, love this as well. Turning up the pressure to the max. He realizes, you know, trading or not, you know, your board still dies to Godfrey. The 2-2 here really isn't doing all too much. You just want to try and kill your opponent. As you said, the double-pronged attack to close out the game as quickly as possible. As, you know, a couple ways to clear off the board here for Be Quiet with the likes of Hellfire Defile, Lord Godfrey, things like that. But nothing that allows him to play this, the seal on the same turn, which is starting to fall behind quite drastically, actually.
Yeah, it's getting...
Oh, no, unless... Oh, sorry.
But yeah, this defile clears up.
Okay, so this is pretty much the best scenario that could possibly happen for Be Quiet, because he found that board clear whilst also playing out a seal on the same turn.
Yeah, that's the thing I was saying last turn, is like those defiles are always there when you have these seal races.
Yeah, seal races. That sounds fun.
Sounds like a really bad aquarium. So, of course, Orange doesn't know there's no Gul'dan. He actually does, because he'd be dead if there was a Gul'dan.
Yeah.
He does know there's no Gul'dan.
Yeah, he does.
What he wants to do is make it so that if Be Quiet misses next turn, he loses, make it so that he can't tap if possible, because the tap would be really awkward. But these things are just so hard to set up, so he's doing the basic plan of draw it now or lose.
Yeah, I think this is a great spot by Orange, because when you have seals in hand and the Gul'dan hero power, there are 2 things you want to do every turn, and you want to play both seals every turn, but you also want to hero power every turn, so it's kind of a difficult balance between making sure you do whichever is the most important of those.
Oh, he draws it off the tap. Can he stay alive?
As Be Quiet finally manages to find a way to resist this pressure, but like you said, is there a way for him to even survive against it? He doesn't have the mana to go for 2-drop Godfrey
He can trade
now.
the 4-4. Oh, he hasn't got... No, he can trade the 4-4. He hasn't got the mana. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if he trades the 4-4 into the 6-6, the board does not die. What is it? Beetle... Hellfire into... Well, what? Hellfire Defile would clear the board. Hellfire Defile clears the board. That's his play.
Okay, sure.
And he's wondering, do I play Beetle beforehand to gain the armor, or afterwards to have an extra 2-3 on the board?
Forgive me for looking at Godfrey before Defile in terms of board clears.
Forgiven.
Thank you. Okay. Chooses to play the Beetle after, assuming he cannot die. So Hellfire Ping is only 6. He's assumed correctly.
And for Orange now, he knows, because the tap was the first play from his opponent last turn, Gul'dan is either in his hand or it's in the deck. Those are the only 2 possibilities, because it would have been played beforehand. So he realizes he has a chance here, if he wanted to take it, to destroy Gul'dan. He could take the 50-50 chance to destroy that bottom card deck, which could be Gul'dan. We can see it's not, and if he does go for that, he'd die, because he'd just be Doom Guarded to death.
Wow. Assuming, oh yeah, he would. Yeah, there's going to be 3 Doom Guards. It's going to...
Pretty sure.
It's going to be a good spot, and yeah. He'll be Doom Guard to death over 2 turns anyway.
And I think he will not anticipate that he's in quite so dire a scenario. But Okay, the thing is, if he doesn't go for that, Gul'dan will be played on this turn
Inevitably.
100%, every single time. There's not even a shadow of a doubt there. He cannot kill his opponent again because he is 1 damage off lethal.
So he's going to play the survival instinct here. Doesn't even get anything from this. He's just saying, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so I know it's coming. Can I stay alive long enough to make it matter? And after his own Gul'dan, he'll be hoping for a bit of payback on this one, otherwise he is just doomed.
Minimum 2 Doom Guards here, maximum 3, as is the most likely outcome. 3 Doom Guards ready to attack in. No Void Lord or Taunt of any kind. So now with Twisting Nether Hero Power face. Oh man, does this ever go in Orange's way? This is so close. He clears off the board. Azari is nothing but a 10-10 at this point, which is not nothing. But the thing is, you kind of want a hero power every single turn because that extra 6 damage swing between healing for 3, dealing 3 damage as well, could make all the difference in the world.
Let's see if it works out.
He's ahead on fatigue. If a board cannot be mounted that can kill Orange, he should just win. And he's still got Siphon Soul, Shroom Brewer, Lord Godfrey, all the board clears and heal. He could need at this point. Cube will not do anything because he has Silence.
And he has a 10-10.
Oh, man. Maybe Azari has to be played next turn because maybe he figures he'll have the time to do it. But then for Be Quiet, the situation for him is put his opponent in a position where he absolutely cannot do that, which he's done, you know, perfectly on this turn. Set up lethal very easily on the following turn. And so I think at this point, Azari will just never be played. Like, the hero power has to come down every single turn for both of these players, pretty much just to stay alive. And for Orange, how does he maneuver this now? Like, Siphon Soul, brilliant. Then you have to Siphon Soul a 6/6 on the following turn. Like, there's still, you're not in a good spot.
Great use of the Doomsayer. I mean, something we all know is how Doomsayer interacts with your opponent board now.
He's just got it. Like, surely Orange just wins here.
I can't see how Be Quiet can generate the damage, to be honest.
Oh, if he goes 5-drop into Cube, would he just die on the following turn? He throws it down. Orange takes the game. That was a staggeringly close Warlock mirror there. Obviously, the Q block up against the control. We saw it go very differently earlier on in a pretty similar, series of events with Double Giant right at the start available for Be Quiet. However, for Orange, very nicely wrestling that back as he does take the series in this first round of Swiss, looking to be in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, both players having a bit of a nightmare with their Gul'dans. Orange just completely whiffing on those Void Lords. Be Quiet. Not only was it deep in his deck, but he didn't completely whiff, but he didn't exactly get what he was really after. So, you know, that balanced out, I guess.
Absolutely.
Orange managing to keep back enough healing and use those resources efficiently enough.
And those are the series that I like, where, you know, both players get something that they can really groan about after the game. Obviously, no Void Lords, as you mentioned, for Orange, and the Gul'dan right at the bottom of the deck, unfortunately, for Be Quiet. Probably would have made a fair bit of difference if it was found sooner, because he could get that damage through just a little bit earlier, and that healing, and then he wouldn't have been so far behind on damage.
Okay, well, that's 2 matches down, but we are going to have one more round 1 for you. We're going to take a very short break, but you don't want to miss this next one coming up.